Something completely different coming from us. So I'm going to talk about aquaculture and biology and another whole area of opportunity and give you a feel for something that we think is very, very important in the development of the food industry right now. So Benchmark Holdings, our mission, we drive sustainability in food production. We're going to talk a lot about aquaculture, but our overall mission is all about sustainable food production. It's a pretty important area because food is the largest consumer of energy on the planet, food production, and it's also the largest polluter on the planet. So bringing sustainable production into that arena is a fairly important challenge for humanity right now. Benchmark's work involves bringing together biology and technology to enable our customers, food producers, to improve their sustainability of production and also their profitability. Our vision is to be aquaculture's leading provider of technical solutions. We bring together the biological disciplines of genetics, aquaculture health, and specialist nutrition. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that actually means as we go through this presentation. And our focus is very much around developing innovative products. So we're not a generics manufacturer. We don't make me toos. And these products will improve yield, product quality, animal health, and animal welfare for our customers. Today, Benchmark is very much a global business. We operate everywhere in the world where there is aquaculture. We've been around for pushing on towards 19 years now. We were founded in the very early 2000. And we've grown through a combination of organic growth and strategic acquisition right through our development. We've always grown strongly. In many ways, we're a typical growth company. We listed our name in 2013. That was all about providing the capital because we could see a very, very big opportunity for us looking forward. We were by then a fairly successful company, but we felt that with more investment capital, we could grow faster and deliver a much bigger opportunity. Today, our market cap is 328 million. So when we talk about technology and biology, what does that really mean? Well, the first thing is, if you look at the technology side, we're looking at all the modern tools in genetics to drive the improvements in performance of the animals that are being farmed. And that might be things like disease resistance or yield. These are aquatic animals. I'll talk more about that as I go along. We're also developing modern vaccine platforms, very often using technology developed in the human pharma arena. New molecules. Another big area as we strive to replace antibiotics in the food animal arena is the development of modern probiotics, and it's an area that we're market leaders in our field of aquaculture. We're combining those kind of technologies with the biology of the animals themselves, an in-depth understanding of how they operate, and this is of fish, this is disease epidemiology, parasite control, feeding, reproductive biology, the kind of basic components of animal production. Benchmark's a little bit unusual in that we cover the major biological disciplines, genetics, nutrition, and health. And today, our revenues, we just did a trading update, and I'm going to talk a bit more about that, but our revenues are something over 150 million. We have a lot of customers. We're a very established company. We work with nearly every major player and most of the minor players in aquaculture around the world. So we have something like 1,400 customers in 70 countries. And we ourselves operate in more than 26 countries and have over 1,000 employees today. A little bit more about the actual key elements of the business. Advanced nutrition, founded in the mid-80s, all around how do we produce shrimp. Not everybody would know perhaps, but most shrimp eaten today around the world are farmed. We've moved very strongly from everything being wild caught. It's since the mid-80s when our business, the Inve business, which is a subsidiary of Benchmark, worked out how to feed baby shrimp, how to hatch shrimp and grow them through the larval stages and feed them through those stages. That's now a big part of the Benchmark business. A little over half of our business is in shrimp and warm water finfish nutrition. It's a very successful business, generates over 20% EBITDA. A lot of customers, 400 to 500 customers around the world. 600 customers around the world. And also a mature pipeline of new technologies, new products being developed to continue to serve those customers with innovation going forward, something like 20 plus products in the pipeline. That business it owns the brand of Inve. It's a recognized brand all around the world in aquaculture. Then genetics, it's a similar story, been around a long time, this time beginning in the very, very early 90s. We acquired it in 2014, the genetics business. It's about 20 to 25% of group revenue. Today it has a 19% EBITDA and growing all the time. Pushing over 150 employees, more than 300 customers. And again, we own some of the absolutely central brands in the aquaculture business. Salmo Breed is a salmon breeder, recognized all over the world where salmon are produced. Aquavorce Genetics is a pioneer in aquaculture species genetics, again recognized all around the world. And then in health, our youngest business, but was still founded in 2000, around 11% of our revenue today. It's not making EBITDAs, and I'm going to give you a reason for that. I'll tell you about that in due course. Over 200 employees, again, a big customer base across the world of aquaculture, and 30 products in development in our pipeline. So again, new things coming forward. And again, in this division, we have businesses that are very recognized around the world. FVG, or Fish Vet Group, is one of the power brands in our industry. If you look at our growth, you can see since 2013 how, following the IPO, we have driven growth in the business forward. The top left-hand graph here shows you that growth. That's always been organic growth as well as some acquisition growth. You can see some of the big steps there in 2016, where we had a big step forward when we acquired Inve. But behind that, there has been strong organic growth taking place all along. And then the graph immediately below it on the bottom left shows our growing profitability. And you can see as we IPO'd in 2013, we were a pretty successful business, growing fast. And what we did with the IPO, we raised money to substantially enhance our R&D program, particularly in our health business. Now, of course, a lot of that R&D, or nearly all of that R&D cost is expensed. So pushing that level of investment in pushed our animal health business into negative margins. And you can see on the bottom right chart there, the R&D growing. And if I say that in animal health, unlike human pharma, we have relatively short timelines. So to bring a new vaccine to market takes about 5 or 6 years. So that's short in the health arena. And to bring a new molecule, develop a new molecule, treatment molecule takes about 10 years. So you can see we started powering in a lot more investment into our R&D program in 2013. Here we are coming to the end of 2018. It's almost 5 years, and we're starting to see the first products coming through, and you are starting to see some of that in the increasing revenues. Our goal then is to be the recognized technology leader through providing breakthrough solutions and superior products. Benchmark is not a company that is frightened of pushing the boundaries. In fact, we are in a happy situation where often technologies are being developed that have amazing potential for us in aquaculture, but the developers, the biotech companies, or the pioneers of these new technologies are very focused on another industry, often human pharma, for example, or human medicine. So they are happy to let us license these technologies and take them out into our field. So we are a bit of a technology aggregator. We bring breakthroughs elsewhere, and we create applications for them in our field. The second main goal for us is to have market-leading positions in each of our markets. We are achieving that today. I'm going to show you some charts that give you a feel for that. The next thing is we want to maximize the synergies between the different technology platforms that we're deploying. Interestingly, genetics may not sound like it's very close to animal health or vaccine development, and it may not sound like it's very close to advanced nutrition or specialist nutrition. But in reality, we are looking at the biology of an animal, and we are developing tools around that biology, and they are often very, very closely linked. So, for example, developing a vaccine for a disease, for a fish disease, shall we say, a disease of salmon like PD, or a parasite like sea lice, you exploring the exact same biology as you would be if you were developing genetic resistance in your breeding programs. And that kind of synergy exists all across our business. And lastly, our major goal is to establish an early strategic position in developing aquaculture species. Aquaculture is an amazing arena. And it's a kind of combination between very, very strong existing markets, existing businesses like the salmon industry, but also there are some new species coming, things like maybe grouper, maybe barramundi. Turbot is now being farmed quite extensively. Sea bass, sea bream, many of you will be buying sea bass or sea bream in shops now in Europe that we've learned how to farm over the last decade or so. So there are emerging species, and some of those are going to be very, very big, many millions of tons of production. And so Benchmark has a position in these markets. It keeps a watching brief. We get involved in some of the development work, but we don't make major investments in them till we see them reaching a critical size. So our financial goals then, how does those kind of principal goals convert into money, into cash? Well, we see our revenue growth continuing very strongly looking forward, 10 to 15% CAGR on that, probably at least. EBITDA margins, we can see that the kind of products we produce have high margins, and it's very possible for us to develop a business that has a 25% plus EBITDA margin for the whole business. In terms of R&D expenditure, we see that it's actually peaked now, we think, starting to come down. We see that coming down and leveling around 9, 10, 11, somewhere around there % of our revenues. That's not atypical for animal health businesses. It's around that sort of number, and our business is sort of similar to them in the way in which we approach R&D. So I said, one of our objectives is to have market leadership. So if we look at our key areas, starting with genetics, where are we on that pathway? Well, today the most valuable species, as probably most of you know, is salmon. Today in genetics, we're the #1 salmon breeder in the world. We're one of only 2 major breeders now. There's been a lot of consolidation. And that is not only in our own production, but we also provide genetic service to some of the major salmon companies like, for example, Marine Harvest and Salmar, 2 of the biggest, who still maintain their own program or still maintain ownership of the breeding assets and operate them. We provide the genetics programs, the R&D and the leading edge genetics to those companies. So we're clearly market leader in those 2, in the salmon industry and in the genetics sector, and that's been driven by having a leading position in the technology. In shrimp, we're a new entrant, relatively speaking. Actually, we acquired about 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago, a program that we'd actually been running through one of our breeding services businesses. It had developed a pioneering new approach to shrimp breeding. Shrimp are a very challenging animal to breed, called SPR, or Specified Pathogen Resistance Technology. We bought the program from the Colombian government, who'd funded the development for Colombian shrimp farmers, and we could see a huge opportunity, and we bought that program to take it out into the world markets. It's a huge opportunity for us, and we're busy with that right now. So we're a relatively new entrant in that market, but very encouraging signs. People are very interested in the technology, and we're conducting trials that we're winning at the moment in the field. In sea bass, we don't own our own programs, but we run sea bass and sea bream, but we run all of the leading programs through our genetic services company. In tilapia, we combine those two again. We run 2 of the 5 largest programs, including the program in China. And we also operate our own program, which is, as you might imagine, technologically very advanced, which is also in the top 5. Tilapia is less developed than shrimp or salmon. Looking at nutrition, in the salmon industry, we're developing new probiotics. There's a huge opportunity for using probiotics in the salmon industry. They're under a lot of scrutiny from consumers, don't want them to be using antibiotics, and probiotics is the way forward. We have a lot of experience of doing that in shrimp and warm water finfish. This is an area that we have expertise in. So we have a new program which is developing there. Then in shrimp, we're easily the largest player in advanced nutrition and shrimp in the world. We have something like a 25% market share. The next nearest player would be in single figures of percents, very, very, very much smaller than we are. So we're very strong, we're a very established player there. We also have a very exciting new business in shrimp, developing new probiotics for the next era. Again, strongly driven by the same driver to remove the use of antibiotics from shrimp production. Sea bass, sea bream, again, clearly the number 1 player. Again, something like a 25% market share. Bringing in new probiotics into that market. And then lastly, tilapia, which is the lowest value of those major species, but actually the largest by volume in production. So salmon is approaching 3 million tons, shrimp 4.5 million tons of production, tilapia is about 5 million tons of production today. And there we're bringing in again new probiotics that improve the efficiency of production. So we have a very strong position in that sector. In health, when we are investing very heavily in development, we have a strong position in sea lice treatments. We've actually brought forward the last 2 new sea lice treatments, so that's the only 2 new sea lice treatments that have been brought forward in the last decade. And we have a whole portfolio of new vaccines being developed, which are being driven by the investment we made following the IPO in 2013. Again, we have vaccines coming for sea bass, and we're looking at vaccines for the future in tilapia. And alongside that, there are lots and lots of synergy opportunities that Benchmark is in a very strong position to pursue. Things like the new data platforms, the development of combination products, things like genetics and vaccines, or probiotics and vaccines. And we also have a role transferring technology into producers. It's worth saying that, as you might expect, we have a strong patent portfolio, 37 families, 220 patents. The thing I would point to here is these are not all old, tired, worn-out patents. 67% of these are pending. So this is new technology that's being developed and patented and brought to market. Again, if you just say a few words about the global market to give you a sense of what's going on. You see this chart on the right, the bottom right, the dark blue piece is wild catch. And you can see wild catch, as you probably would expect, has plateaued. And there's no growth coming from that. But on the charts on the left, you can see that global demand is being driven very strongly forward. We have a growing population, a growing middle class, We have growing demand for protein, and that is what's fueling the growth in aquaculture, which you can see on the top of that graph on the right. So all of the growth in this product is coming from aquaculture from now on. And you can see that reflected in the FAO estimates on the bottom left, where you can see aquaculture growing at 6% a year projection. I think it may do more than that, but that's the FAO projection. And you can see the other species, poultry, pretty healthy at 2%, pigs pretty much flat, and dairy pretty much flat. So, you know, the world can see that there is a massive opportunity in aquaculture. And why are we important in that? Well, what this next chart shows you is one of the key elements of the aquaculture industry. It's a new frontier in many ways, and the constraining factors on the growth are biological problems, often disease. So shrimp, over the last 7 years, estimates are that more than $20 billion worth of damage have been done in the shrimp industry by the emergence of 2 or 3 new diseases. Similar picture in salmon, where $1.5 million a year roughly is caused by just a small number of diseases. Streptococcus in tilapia on its own does $1 billion worth of damage. This is the picture that we're dealing with. Biological problems are the thing that constrains the growth of the global aquaculture industry, and Benchmark's work is all in resolving these issues. On top of that, I can see I'm starting to run out of time here, so I'm going to go a bit quicker. We have some other major positive drivers. We have big pressure from consumers to change the way we produce, to move to more sustainable production. And the only way to do that is by delivering technology that helps farmers and producers produce more sustainably. That's also being reflected in the retailers. They want their supply chains to be more secure, to be more reliable, to be more predictable. And again, that can only be done through the application of technology. We also have regulation as a key factor here. In many of our markets today, the production is constrained in growing. So salmon, if you could build more salmon farms, you could make a lot of money because demand is very strong for salmon. But regulators stop people from doing that. And the way to free up growth is through improving biological performance. This is the work of Benchmark. And lastly, we see our global industries consolidating. So in Vietnam, today, there's about 25,000 shrimp farmers. And that will contract down to probably less than 50 over the next decade. And as that happens, you get larger, modern food companies, more professional, and those are the people who use the kind of advanced technology that we develop. So that drives our business as well. And so these are the reasons why we are so confident about the growth of our business. This chart is just to give you a feel for how we produce products that go right across the supply chain, so I'm not going to dwell on that too long. I'm just going to talk very quickly about a couple of key areas which those of you who may have taken an interest in Benchmark will have heard about maybe already. First one is the shrimp genetics product that I talked about, SPR, pathogen resistance. Here, the market is enormous for this product. Shrimp are interesting because when you select them for growth, when you select shrimp that grow faster, you select against disease resistance. It's one of the only species where that happens. In most animals, when you select them for growth, you improve their resistance to disease because you bring an earlier maturity of the immune system. But shrimp don't have an immune system. They're an invertebrate. So in their case, it actually worsens their disease resistance. We came up with a technology that allows us to select for disease resistance alongside growth. It's an interesting area, and that opens up what is potentially a £60 million market for us. And that's just dealing with the top end of the shrimp industry. So this is a very big opportunity, one that we're working on right now, and we're in the field in Asia in particular, running field trials with this product. The next one is sea lice treatment. Sea lice, again, I guess most of you will have seen things in the newspapers or programs on the TV about sea lice in salmon. It's a very big problem. It's easily the largest problem that salmon producers face. We've got a new product that is a new molecule. It has 100% efficacy. It's in clinical trials at the moment. It's a very big market, at least 45, 50 million pound market. And this time it's combined with a technology we call Clean Treat, which allows us to remove the drug from the treatment effluent before it's discharged back into the sea. And this is one of the major concerns that regulators have around salmon production at the moment. They don't want to see drugs being discharged back into the sea because of the environmental impact. So we brought forward, alongside the introduction of a new drug that's highly efficacious, we brought forward a technology that allows that treatment to be done with no environmental impact. So this is a very exciting product for us. It's got a very big market. It's patent protected, so we have here what we think is one of the major opportunities for the company. We recently launched, gave a trading update. We're going to give you our figures our figures for the year in January. Our year end is September the 30th. But just to say, you can see from these figures that the company is performing well. Revenues are up. EBITDA is up to something above 16.5 million. That's 65% growth on EBITDA against the previous year. Revenue up by more than 7%. And we have some nice new things coming. We have a Chilean JV, which opens up the Chilean market, one of the big markets for salmon. We have a new facility giving us increased capacity in Norway. And we have these sea lice treatment trials running at the moment. So our picture is looking fairly good looking forward from here. So I'm going to end there. Give us a chance to ask a few questions.
Thank you, Malcolm. Yes, probably time for a very quick question if anybody's got one just now. We've got a question just here on the end of this row.
When you're looking at the vaccine markets, are you approaching something like the flu market, where you've got like avian or swine flu? You wouldn't see that as a way forward?
No, we are really these days more or less entirely focused on aquaculture. So our major markets for vaccines begin in salmon, and then the warm water finfish, things like grouper, sea bass, sea bream, turbot and the like. And we're developing vaccines for those species.
Excellent. I'm sure Malcolm will be joining us next door, so if there's any other sort of follow-up questions, I'm sure he can deal with them then. But thank you very much, Malcolm.